Welcome to Roland's Travels. Today we're in Rode in Somerset, spelled R-O-D-E. It has been spelled many different ways. Started off as Roda and then Road, R-O-A-D, but early in the 20th century it was adopted back to R-O-D-E, more to resemble the original name of Rhoda. Got a hedgerow on our right, but there is a church there which was built 19th century. Just see it through the gap. Now that church now is a violin shop, and also they have some concerts there from time to time, I believe. There it is. Going to go down Langham Place. We can split road up into sort of three sections. This section here, around Langham Place. There's a section on the A361 which was the original starting point of Rode as a village, but the main part is behind me at the moment. We're going to go and explore that later, which grew around the woolen trade. Just look back. We've been, and we're going to take a look at Langham House a moment. It is private residence, so we can't look at it too much, but it used to be called Road Hill House, and there was a murder there where a 16-year-old girl murdered her half brother. Constance Kent was the girl's name. And that is Langham House, as you can see, formerly Road Hill House. She wasn't found guilty at first due to the mess up by the Frome Constabulary, and a request was made for a detective to come down from Scotland Yard, Jack Witcher. He was convinced that Constance had committed the murder, but unfortunately, with a mess up with Frome police, and they hid some valuable evidence because they didn't want to know what had gone wrong, he didn't solve the case. But Constance did later on admit to it and served a jail term for about 20 years. She was then released. She was at the age of 41, and she lived to 100. She emigrated to Australia. Now we're going to go down and take a look at an old mill down here with a story to tell. So we'll take you down here, and then we're going to explore the main part of the village, which is over to my left as we are looking at everything now. So I'll be back soon. We'll skip a few yards until we get a little bit around this corner. So, as promised, we just got round the bend as we go down Road Hill. And the first thing we come to on this bend is going to be an old coach house and a beautiful cottage alongside the River Frome. You see, that's called the Miller's House. And a very nice setting it is too, to live alongside the river here. We'll take a look at the river. So the River Froome powered the mills that were here. There were at least 4, possibly 5 mills in Road, and we're going to see one that is still remaining as a building. It was the last one to close, just coming up now on our right hand side. Let's go take a look. Now in a moment I'll cross the road and get a better view of this old mill. This has been a restaurant up until around April time, and of course we've had the COVID pandemic, and many hospitality businesses have suffered greatly, and this was one of them. Take a look back to the bridge, and here we have the mill. Now this one is famous really in our everyday language, because this is the place where the colour royal blue was invented. In the 18th century there was a competition to produce a cloak, Queen Charlotte, and the Road mills won, and a colour was decided upon using royal blue, which is manufactured here. And it was given an official title later on. So your royal blue colour originates from this very building. So there's a fact for you. Now we're just going to walk back up the hill where we came from, so I'll cut out the video until we get to our turn off point. So now let's take a walk into the main part of the village, into Lower Street. There's Lower Street, High Street, Church Street. You'll see the streets we'll go into. So I'd like to show you one of the village pumps. In fact, there's another pump we can look at in a moment for you. Certainly nice to see all these lovely lived in, well preserved homes. And here's the other village pump. And we're building built some new houses there, which blend in very nicely with the overall theme of the village, which is good. Take a look back that way. It's a very warm day here. Recording this on August the 7th, 2022. It's a more modern development to our right. We have an old chapel coming up on the left. On the right was the former pub, the Red Lion. The housing. And on the other side of the road we have the remaining pub that's open and brewery. We'll show you that in a second. We'll just turn around. Now the cross keys inn can be traced back to at least 1730. It then became Fussel's Brewery. I think it's about 1857. And closed in 1991. It's now housing behind the pub, and what's left of the brewery building is housing and apartments. Now later on we'll go back to where the pub and brewery were, and we'll walk further into the village that way. Now we're coming up to the school. It's the old school buildings here, and as you can see, we used to have a girls' entrance. And a boys' entrance too. We're just going to take a walk down the mead. This is newer properties here, but once we get to the end there's a footpath, and I'll take you down there and show you something very special. So I'm going to go down this footpath, across a couple of fields, and I'm going to show you something that goes back several hundred years and really is a magnificent structure. So when we get down here, I'm going to tell you about it and show you. And here we are. This is what I want to show you. This is a pack horse bridge, hundreds of years old, built of course for pack horses, could bring the materials here, the wool, for the various mills, and this runs over the River Frome. Beautiful setting. Now if we carried on, we'd come out to the village of Wolverton. Something to be reminded about here. Now let's go and take a look at what the bridge looks like from the side. Now let's start walking back towards the centre of the village. Here's a bit more of a view of the old brewery, the old Fussel's Brewery, which you can see in behind is accommodation, behind the pub, So a nice traditional old pub that you can visit, have a meal and enjoy a drink at the Cross Keys. So just taking a look now at the corner house, and this is Church Lane. We're now going to go down Church Lane and, as the name would indicate, to the church, which is the original part of road. So join me as we go down. A lot of the properties are fairly modern in the middle section and also rural, till we come to the cottage here on the corner of this junction, which is a beautiful white cottage. And now we're approaching the A361, the main road that goes through road. Obviously the main part of the village is bypassed really. It's been built well away from this A361. That's the Bell Inn, which is currently closed, looking for new owners. It's come and gone a few times actually. And this is a very busy road. So now we're going to cross over by these old cottages. There's a farm on our left as well, one of the original farms from the area. And we're going to go to the church and take a look around the graveyard and around the outside of the church. This is St Lawrence Church. It was built in the late 14th, early 15th century. It was restored in 1874. There are some Saxon remains that have been built into the church doorway, and there was probably a church on this site before the Saxons actually came along and built one as well. I think down here there's a crypt. Probably quite dangerous to go in there. Some of the masonry looks a little precarious on the outside, and I always should use the word enjoy, but I do enjoy looking around a churchyard. There's a lot of history in the gravestones when you look at that, and all the people that have come and gone and buried in the churchyard tells a story of a particular place, and you see family names throughout graveyards in little towns and villages who have been there for centuries, and the families still exist today. A good place for genealogists to look for evidence of who was who, as well as the baptism records, of course, and death records the church will keep. So some very old graves in this graveyard. And if you ever want a bit of history on a local place, do pop into the graveyards, the cemeteries, and have a look. It is a way of finding out information about a particular family or area that you're visiting. Now we've taken a look at the church. We'll work our way back past these lovely old cottages. It's a shame it is such a busy road. They have built some new houses behind these cottages, and we'll go back down to Church Lane now, and that brings us back where we started our journey into Church Lane in Road Village Centre. We're going to work our way along the high street, and when you look at some of the buildings, you'll notice from the window shapes particularly across the road that some have been shops in the past. There used to be several more pubs which are now houses along the high street, so they've long gone. This building on the right used to be part of the brewery, part of the stores I believe it was, which is now a chocolate manufacturer, handmade chocolates. So Choc on Choc, if you want to look them up. And then the sort of last remaining retail business coming up is the post office stores, just coming up on our right hand side once we get past the property with the scaffolding up. Love the little alleyways that you find in these villages. So here we come up to the post office. It's great to see it still going, of course, so it's good that the locals support it. We do have an old K9 telephone box, but of course, like most phone boxes in the UK, if they haven't been removed, are now used for other purposes. So this one is the defibrillator, and a little book lending library book swap area, which many have been used for now. Take a look at the Baptist church. That's the old schoolroom. There's a better view of it from the other side of the road with the church on the right. This is Cheap Street, which is now, apart from the back of the church there, is just got some new houses at the end. Now, Cheap Street usually means to do with being shops, so perhaps at one time there were shops on that road. I haven't got any evidence to the contrary at the moment on that, but that's where the word cheap comes from. It means really to sell. So any road called Cheap Street would have been a shopping street until sort of we tend to use the name High Street after that, which became the sort of the retail streets in any particular town or village. Sadly, of course, most villages have lost their shops, even though they have a high street. And there's the village green with the war memorial. And they do now have a nice village green sign for road as you go towards the end of this triangular section here. We'll take a look back the other way as well in a moment or two. There's the village sign. And again, some wonderful properties. One or two new ones have been blended in quite nicely. But it is good to see the properties, beautiful windows and fascias and bays and so forth. Nice casement windows there, and the coining down the side of the homes where you'll see that as we just go past. That's where the bricks look as though they're interlocked, a little bit like when you see woodwork with the dovetail joints. We're getting close now towards the end of our walk. There's a new development, or newish I should say. It's quite a few years old now, many decades old, but it's new in terms of road, just on our behind me now, but what was on our right. And again, the final older properties that we see as we go towards the end of the road. On our right is the newer properties. There is still a bus service running through road. They've had to fight for that, and they continue to do so. It was going to be completely withdrawn and cut them off from all forms of public transport, but thankfully a campaign to keep that going was successful. And we have a farthing road with a village hall there that can be used with a car park in front. So we're coming to the conclusion of our walk. I want to thank you very much indeed for joining me on the walk. Do subscribe before you go, click the notification bell, and we shall obviously see you in a future video. Take care.